Welcome to a very special edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, and I'm joined in studio alongside, he's an Olympic gold medalist. You might see him talking about beach volleyball all over the television. And by the way, he just three-peated as national champions, USC beach, women's beach volleyball, 3-time straight national champions that came in this year as an underdog. We got Dain Blanton in studio. Dain, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. Exciting times, to say the least.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, just absolutely crazy. It was on ESPN Saturday morning. If people didn't get to check it out, Gulf Shores, Alabama, which we're going to talk about in a little bit because that's a little strange that they're doing beach volleyball in Alabama. I'll get your thoughts on that. But, I mean, this was the year that you guys are supposed to be a rebuilding year, right? You guys come in as underdogs and end up winning the championship over, a lot of USC fans will like this, number one ranked UCLA.
Yeah, it was a real special year because we won in 21, which surprised a lot of people. Then we didn't really lose anybody. So in 22, the stakes were high, the pressure was high. I think anything less than a win would have been a bit disappointing for all the players. So we end up winning back-to-back in 22, but then we lose 12 players, if you can believe it, on a roster that contains about 18 to maybe 22 at most. So we lose 12 players. We fully have to rebuild. 7 freshmen come in, 3 grad transfers, and really myself and my assistant coach, Gustavo Hocha, we said, hey, we need to have accelerated learning here if we're going to be in the mix. And so we gave it all we could to this freshman, and they bought in as a team, and we just had an incredible run, and things came together at the right time.
Yeah, the watching on television, so people don't know, if you're not too familiar with the beach volleyball and the format, I guess it was a little different this year, right? Single elimination. They thought maybe a few more upsets could happen, but there's beach volleyball was around for a few years before it became a sanctioned NCAA sport. It's been 7 years now, and you guys have won 5 NCAA championships. UCLA won the other 2. So they thought maybe this would be the year of some upsets with that format, but apparently not. You guys both made the finals again.
It was interesting because I was on the NCAA committee when the vote came up to make it single elimination once we got to that field of 16. And I thought it was a fantastic idea to go single elimination. Usually the winner of the winner's bracket ends up winning the tournament anyway. A lot of the other places kind of can get jumbled around, but I just thought it made more sense. A lot of fans that are becoming new to the sport, they don't understand how a team can lose on a Saturday and then be playing on Sunday, right? So that's why I thought it very important to go to single elimination. It simplifies it. Logistically, it makes it a lot easier for the NCAA to run. And you're right, though. We thought there would be a lot more upsets. We were hoping, of course, we didn't get upset, but I didn't see really any upsets across the board. And but the stakes were high, the drama was high, and I'll tell you what, the pressure was through the roof.
Yeah, the pressure. So if you did get to watch on ESPN, I guess it was Sunday morning, right? The finals were Sunday morning. My apologies for that. If you didn't get to watch on Sunday, it was really interesting because the way they formatted it was if you have 10 players for each team that go. There's pairs 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're playing doubles against the other one. So that similar to when you're having a tennis match, you have your number 1 singles and your number 2 singles or whatever. But you have your number 2 pairs and number 4 pairs playing at the same time. And I don't think you were at least not favored in one of those matches. End up winning 2 and go up 2-0. So then it's sort of like you only need to win one more of the 1s, the 3s, and the 5s, and then lose the next 2. So it was like there was a lot of drama there where it seems like there was upsets within the pairings of USC and UCLA.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We had a really great lineup that we thought going into the national championship, a lineup that no one really had ever seen. We had tweaked it a little bit. But, yeah, you'd have to say that the number 2 team from UCLA was undefeated, so they were favored to win, right?
Yeah, they hadn't lost a match all year, right?
Yeah, they were undefeated on the year, so they were the favorite for sure. And the way they do it is a coin flip. Will it be 2 and 5 going first, or will it be 2 and 4 or 3 and 5? It's just a coin flip, and so not to give anyone an advantage. And when I saw that 2 and 4 were up first, I knew that we had our work cut out for us. But we stepped up, like I said, at the right time, won those at the 2 and the 4, which from a psychological advantage, you're feeling good, but at the same time, UCLA's backed into a corner. So they're going to play a lot freer in that second flight when the 1, 3, and 5 team are playing, and that's what they did. They played spectacular volleyball at the 1 position. They were on fire at the 5 position, and then all of a sudden we're in the 3rd set on the 3s, and it all comes down to that. So it can sway back and forth, and television loved it. ESPN did a fantastic job covering it, and it was just a lot of drama and a lot of fun for the viewer.
Yeah, I remember watching, and I was just, on my couch, and was like, "Oh wow!" And I guess your number 1 team was doing good all year. They sort of struggled maybe a little bit later on, and then that was maybe part of it. But it comes down to the 3s, and I know you've said about the Twins, like as far as competitors go, there's no one else that you'd rather have out there for an important match like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so Megan Kraft and Delaney Maple, our number 1s, were, I want to say, 30-something and 1 on the season going into the tournament. They ended up facing a very tough TCU team where they lost, and they faced a very tough UCLA team. So not the way they wanted to end it, but they were our rock the entire year. They were always posting a point and very confident in them, but they faced 2 teams that were absolutely on fire. That meant somebody else had to step up and really post a point for us. And it came down to the wire for the Twins. They had a stoppage against LMU, a lightning stoppage, where they had to come out and finish a 3rd set where they were leading 10-7. Then they had a crazy set versus TCU in the semis where they won 29-27. And then in the finals, all of a sudden, everything is on their court. And it's interesting, when you look in their eyes, they love to compete. They love to be on the biggest stage, and I was very comfortable having them on the court and it on the line with them in control because I have so much confidence in their abilities.
How does the coaching for that work when you have multiple pairs going at once? Can you bop around between courts, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, it's a fantastic question. So early rounds, I like to call it the blitz, right? They run all 5 courts at the same time. Remember, we have a head coach and 2 assistant coaches, so we only can have 3 coaches. So if it's a blitz and there's 5 courts going, some of the courts are not going to have a coach, and things can go very quickly. They can unravel very quickly, and you don't have a lot of control. That's why I like the flights, the way that the finals was done. You had the 2s and the 4s play to completion. So at the end of that first flight, it can't be over. It's either 1-1 or 0-2, right? So everybody's still alive. And then you have that second flight, which starts 10 minutes after the first flight. So you're able to have a coach on every court throughout the entire finals, and you feel at least a little bit more of a sense of control.
Yeah. I'm not super familiar with tennis, but I know you're pretty much out there on an island. Like if you're playing, the coach isn't really involved. How involved can you be, and what sort of, or your assistant coaches, and what sort of things are you saying stuff? Is it only on side switches, or is it timeouts? Or is that the only time you're kind of really talking to them?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you're a fan, you'd be like, wow, there's not a lot of coaching going on. So you're kind of cheerleading during the play, and then we have what's called a walk and talk. So when we switch sides, that entire walking from one side to the other, that's why you want to do it nice and slow. You can coach all you want. That's where you get the information. Okay, hey, they're blocking your angle. We want to go here. Let's serve this player down the line. But you can't blurt that out during play. You can only do it on side switches or timeouts.
Okay, yeah. So you're not like, hey, shoot, whatever. But is there usually strategy like, hey, we're working her more than working her? Or
Oh,
whatever?
yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you're going to go one direction, not because that player might be the weaker player. Maybe their partner is a weaker setter.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of strategy that goes in. Some people can pass a traditional topspin jump serve better than they can a float serve. So the type of serve you're giving a player is important. The right and left shoulder. A lot of people don't know this, but some people pass better off of a certain shoulder. Their inside maybe right shoulder rather than their left side. So you want to target that weakness and exploit it as much as you can.
And then obviously weather comes into to play with the wind and all that. I mean, I'm down at the beach last night coaching like the little city stuff, and the wind is blowing sideways. We're trying to teach setting. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I know the weather was sort of insane down there. What was that like? There was lightning delays and all that.
Yeah.
And how much did that affect play?
The thing is crazy. I mean, Gulf Shores will test even the seasoned volleyball athlete because you're going to get every type of, let's say, condition that you're going to see. You could see 15 to 25 mile an hour winds at any time. You can get rain at any moment. You can get lightning, and if it strikes within, I believe, 6 to 8 miles, they shut you down for a half an hour until it's an all clear. And then if it's clear and sunny and nice, then you're dealing with the heat and the humidity, which can go through the roof. So all of these elements are at play, and so it's challenging because we play at I guess you'd say, a very sheltered facility on Figueroa, where when I say sheltered, it's not exposed to some of the, in the late afternoon, the winds that come. So we like to get down to the beach at least once a week to expose our players to the elements, because if you show up in the wind and you're not prepared for it, it can be a disaster. And so really a big focus for us is having the players embrace whatever challenges come their way. And there was challenges abound this weekend. I mean, I've been to Gulf Shores, I think 8 years in a row, as a volunteer assistant early on, as a broadcaster in 2019, and then the last 3 years as a head coach. And I think we got it all this year. It just every year, sometimes a storm comes through. This year it was a storm in the morning, then there was another one coming in the afternoon, and then tomorrow morning it's not going to be clear. And so it was a lot to deal with, and that's what really surprised me, how we were able to handle it and be real mature about it and understand you got to embrace it because everybody's dealing with the same stuff.
I was kind of tweeting there. I'm like, I still don't understand why they hosted it there. And I've had some people on Twitter that were like, hey, man, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. And I'm like, I get it. But like the mecca of college, of beach volleyball is Southern California. Like, why not have it here? But what were your thoughts on like kind of, or if you know why it's been hosted there for so long? They're coming to Huntington Beach, I think next year or the year after that, right?
Yeah.
And then, what is it like down there? Is it a cool place to play? You've won a gold medal. Like you play beach volleyball all over the world. Like, is it a cool place to play?
Yeah, I mean it's a very valid question because when you hear Gulf Shores, Alabama, you don't think beach volleyball. I mean, let's be clear about that. There's no question about it. But it feels like you're just in Florida because you do fly into Pensacola. You drive across the border to get there. And once you were there, I mean, you saw how it translates on TV. It's absolutely beautiful with the water and the white sands. And it's almost an open landscape. And it's almost like a set, right? ESPN even brings in palm trees and kind of spruces it up. It's a pretty amazing look when it's ready to go. But I think the reason that they started going to Gulf Shores is they probably bid on it early before it was an NCAA event. And I'm speculating now, but you remember that big oil spill?
Oh, yeah.
Years ago, BP, I believe. I think those areas got a lot of money for tourism and have brought a lot of events there. I think they have some music festivals. And like I said, I'm totally speculating. I don't know if that's how it ended up there, but I thought it was cool after they created it with the AVCA when it flipped over to being certified by the NCAA. The NCAA somewhat, I guess, rewarded them and continued to have it there, which I thought was really cool. And they do a fantastic job. It's right in front of this great bar called The Hangout.
Okay.
There's a condos right there, so we can watch from our balconies some of the teams, and you can walk right down and get on the court, so you don't have to worry about driving down to the beach. And then it's just a really cool spot. In 2025, like you said, it will move to Huntington Beach. And I think that will increase attendance, no question about it, because it's a hard place to get to, even though it's such a beautiful place and it's such a great place and it's been hosted and they've done a fantastic job. It's never easy getting there. I've had delays, and you usually have to go through Dallas or Houston, and there's always weather going on. So it can be a really long trip.
Yeah. You told me if they have to bring in palm trees, I don't know about that. Like if you're like importing palm trees, but it does look cool. And the white sanded beach, and I like the tradition of jumping in the water and all that. It seemed like I got the picture of the girls all jumping in the water and everything. It seems like it's a really fun one. When you do get to practice, so if, when I was in school and, when I was at USC, like that was a parking lot where you guys, the beach volleyball stadium now, and there's like a parking structure there. Like you said, it's right on Figueroa, so you don't get a lot of elements. When you do practice, are you going to like the South? Are you going to like Hermosa, Manhattan, or where do you guys go? Or you kind of move it around a little bit?
Yeah, we usually go down to Hermosa. Go early morning, sometimes on a Saturday, to get down there before the weekend warriors are down there playing, because you don't want to get in their way, right? You don't want to get in their way, and you want them to be happy that you're down there using their courts rather than on the court when they want to play. And so, you know how beach volleyball is. It's a very kind of close-knit culture. It's it's kind of like surfing, right? You go surf at the wrong spot, you better respect whose point that is, right? And similar with volleyball, especially in the South Bay, there's certain courts that are really I guess, kind of run by certain people. I remember when I was growing up in Marine Street, it was Tim Hovland and Mike Dodd had a court down there that
you didn't mess with it.
Yeah, you didn't mess with it. I mean, you might play on it, but if they showed up, you better get off the court, And then St. John and Randy Stoklos, who played up at State Beach, there was that one court up there, and so I remember because I grew up down in Laguna Beach, there was always the top pros playing on a court, and if you were new or not good enough, don't even think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know like a lot of Olympians from around the world will come and play in Hermosa, and I've been told, the sand's just very deep, right? So if you're going to be like a marathon runner, it's probably better to run in Denver. A lot of people like to train in Hermosa, right? Because it's harder to jump out of that than if you're in like a parking lot in Chicago where there's just like an inch of sand.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's another thing. Gulf Shores, anywhere in Florida, we call it a jumper's beach, right? It's really hard packed. It's really hard packed. But you're absolutely right. I'd say the deepest sand that I've ever played in is probably, Manhattan, Hermosa. Laguna Beach is very deep as well. There's a lot of areas in Southern California. And it's funny, too, as a coach now, you get a lot of recruiting tapes, right? So you have to take into consideration what surface some of these girls are playing on,
because if you see them like just
they're banging balls, right? And then they get out to Southern California and they, it's hard to clear the net. So you want to definitely take into consideration what surface you're playing on. But if you train in the deep stuff, you're going to be better off on every surface, just as you were saying, like altitude training, right?
Yeah.
If you train there, you're going to be, really good cardiovascularly anywhere that you go.
Do you think that's going to impact now that the national championships in 2 years, like you said, 2025 will be in Southern California? It's going to be different, right? It's probably going to be a lot harder. Mm-hmm. It's probably an advantage for Southern California teams, even though they've won all the championships anyway. But if you're in Florida, you're playing on more hard pack stuff. I know we're getting like the nitty gritty of beach volleyball, but I love this stuff. But anyway,
I mean, that's a very very valid point you bring up. It'll be more challenging in the deep sand, especially if you haven't played in the deep sand. I mean, similar to what we talked about earlier, if we don't expose our players to the wind, then they're going to be in trouble. And you get a ton of wind in Florida and in Alabama. You don't get quite as much wind in Southern California until the afternoon. So that's the fun thing about the sport is there's so many elements: the surface, the conditions, the heat, the wind, the side changes, the sun. You don't see the sky ball very often anymore, but that's what people used to use when the sun was up there in the wrong position. So it's a lot of fun throwing all of those elements in and trying to come up with a game plan.
You guys, so right now the commencement stuff's going on at USC today on Friday, and the athletic graduation day was yesterday.
Yeah.
What was that? I know you went to that. What was that like for you?
Well, it was awesome. I mean, there's such a buzz, right? Winning 3 in a row is something that has never been done on a women's sport at USC. So three-peating. So President Folt was at the ceremony, and she was fired up and mentioning the performance by our student athletes in Gulf Shores, and then our AD Mike Bone, who's done just an amazing job. So fun to coach under his leadership and the support that we get. He was there and fired up, and it was cool. It's fun to see our student athletes graduate and move on to the next level. Some will continue playing, others that'll be a wrap for their career. But the biggest thing that we focus on at SC is really providing a world-class experience for the student athlete, and I think we've done that the last few years, and hopefully we can continue to do so.
To do that, and a lot of the people that are watching this or listening to this, they're USC football fans. It's primarily what we do. It was great to have you on last year talking about this championship and another one, but they really get into recruiting and they follow it. They follow where these high school players are going and all of that. What for you, like, what is recruiting like? I mean, you just go over to Miracosta and try to get the best girls from there, and obviously winning championships helps. But what's the whole kind of recruiting process like?
Well, it's getting very interesting because the sport's growing at such a rapid rate. But on June 15th, after their sophomore year, is when you can contact an athlete, not before, okay? So you have to wait. So next month, on June 15th, we'll start heavy in it, and we'll be recruiting the class of 25. So we've already recruited the class of 23 and 24. But the hotbeds, I'll tell you, are Southern Cal, Texas, and Florida. There are so many tournaments. There's so many players coming out of there. And I've kind of really reached out as far as I can. We have players from Florida right now. We have multiple players from Texas, Arizona, and I would say Southern Cal. I can't say it's in the minority because Delaney Maple, San Diego, Megan Kraft, San Diego, the Nourse twins, Newport Beach. But after that, it starts really expanding all across the country.
It's changed. College football recruiting has changed. I think across the board with NIL, there's opportunities there. Transfer portal. You said you had some grad transfers kind of come in. How much has that changed recruiting? Like, how much is NIL involved with beach volleyball?
Yeah, I have some players that have NIL deals. I don't know all the intricate details of it, but there are definitely some marketable players that have really embraced the NIL space. And it's kind of the Wild West as well right now, trying to figure out the rules, and they're trying to get everything in order. So we kind of leave it up to the athlete to do that thing. But it opens up the door to, to have some more movement. And because, we, at the end of the day, we have 6 scholarships. Beach volleyball does. Oh, okay. And we have 10 starters. So usually we're giving partial scholarships. But it's really cool to see that the sport is growing. It's the fastest emerging sport that the NCAA has ever picked up. Oh, and I think if they can increase those scholarship limits to 12, it would really blow the roof off. And then you'd see a lot of more programs because it's a win-win for everybody. You always talk about Title IX and being in compliance. So it never hurts having more women's sports and more women's scholarships to equal things out.
Have you run into, there's usually with men's sports, like with baseball, and I've talked to people in the track area where you have very limited scholarships and it's an expensive private school. Is that something that's, an issue that you've run into as well?
Well, absolutely. That's a big challenge, right? Because schools are not created equal in terms of how much they cost. And but the real important thing at USC is the reputation and the quality education, and that's what we really push, because it means a lot to get a degree. I mean, you're a grad, you know the doors that get open being part of the USC family, and if you're smart when you're at USC, you want to meet a lot of people because the family runs deep, right, all across the world, and it can open so many doors. So the quality education is really an important aspect, and we're seeing a lot of players want to come, even if it's after their graduate program, to get their undergrad. They come here to get their graduate degree. Oh. And with COVID, sports stopped, but school never stopped. So a lot of players have what we call a COVID year left, and this last year will be the last of them, okay, right? And then it will exhaust. So that transfer portal, the grad students looking to play one more year, that's a hot market for us, and I think we have to try to take advantage of it on this last year coming up, and then things will settle down and people will be back on their 4 years of eligibility and not have that kicker COVID year anymore. But we I think have navigated well, and that those grad students have helped us tremendously.
Look, I know we got to get you out of here. One of the things you mentioned is going on when you graduate and moving on. What's the state of like professional beach volleyball around the world? And are there opportunities for some of your graduates to go on and play professionally?
Yeah, after the 22 season last year we couldn't have asked for anything better. Julia Scholes went out to win on the AVP tour. She did it with Gina Urango, who was the first, actually. She's some history. She was the first beach volleyball scholarship athlete back in 2012. So her and Gina Urango won. I had Haley Harward win with Tina Gradina on the AVP tour. And this is within a month and a half of graduation. Tina Gradina was from Latvia, and she went to the Olympics and got 4th place. And so the AVP tour is doing their thing this year, and the international circuit, as you know, there's a few different tiers. The Elite 16 is the top tier, and we have Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang, who are USC alums, leading the charge right now for the Paris Olympics. So the international game's strong. The AVP is doing their thing, and it's going to be interesting, Paris in 24, how much of a boost that gives, and if the powers that be can capitalize even more so than years past when you have that really Olympic pop where the popularity really seems to spike.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dain Blanton, Olympic gold medalist, head coach of USC women's beach volleyball, three-peating. I told him earlier he's got to update his shirt there. It's the back-to-back. Back-to-back.
We just got back. I mean,
you guys had like gear already, like sitting there and stuff. So that must have been...
You never want to jinx yourself.
That was right. I know the Trojan marching band like met you when you guys flew back. That must have been fun.
That was cool. I mean, the support, right? The whole family, from the president of the university to the AD, to the band. There's so much support, and it was a team win. We didn't do it alone. We did it with a lot of support, and everybody really taking their role seriously. And hopefully, we can be back in that position to have that opportunity again.
All right. Well, Dain Blanton, head coach of USC women's beach volleyball. Thanks so much for coming in the studio. We could show his. Oh, I don't think we're showing it. You want to come over here real quick?
Come here,
come on, come say hi. Come say hi to your dad. Yeah, his cute son Cade is here. Yes. Nice. You gonna play volleyball, Cade? You gonna play volleyball?
You gonna play?
Yes.
Nice. All right.
Say fight on.
Fight Right on.
All right.
Right on. All right.
Thanks for coming out, Dain and Cade, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.
All right. Appreciate it.